they parked it there right beside the chicken house across the road. And so that was our abode for that year.
Uh-huh.
So we had a bunk up and a bunk down, upper and lower. We had a table. We had a little two-burner, remember these oil-burning stoves? You burn kerosene in them?
Yes.
If you open them up too much, you had Boku soup and flames. We had that. We had a little sink, you know, and we lugged water from a faucet outside of his house. And then we had a little necessary house out in the back of the chicken house. So that was how we got through
your junior year.
Right.
Didn't it get pretty cold?
Oh yeah, we had a sheet iron stove.
Mm-hmm.
And every week when folks came down, they'd fill their cars full of wood, slab wood and so forth. So we'd burn wood, we had wood fire. Of course the darn fire would go out about 2 o'clock in the morning. If you didn't stoke it, it'd get pretty cold.
Right.
But that's all right. So that was how we went to school.
Right, okay.
And, so the last year, I had my car. So I drove my car to school from home.
Now that year that was like a cabin on the back of the truck that you stayed in?
No, we set it on the ground.
You set it on the ground, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you walked to school each day from there?
Yeah. All we had to do was walk across the river, go across the railroad tracks and up over the bank where we were in high school.
Sure, yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
safe. Yeah. So we boarded ourselves. And,
Good for you.
lots of times, nights, I used to go with Morris Pennard. He worked for Stu McKenzie in the store.
Okay.
And he used to deliver groceries to all the people around. They'd call up and they'd order groceries, boxes of them. And he'd take the little truck and we'd go deliver them to different houses. East Andover, West Andover, all over town. And I used to ride around with him, help look at groceries.
Uh-huh.
Did you have any jobs after school?
Well, this was one
This
of
was
them.
one.
I think I got 25 cents an hour or something.
Right.
But,
Did you know Vic Phelps?
oh, sure, Vicky?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Young Vic, and I knew his father, yeah.
Right. Vic told me that he used to deliver groceries the same way that you did
Yeah?
at one time.
Uh-huh.
And
That was probably earlier on.
and Ella Pennard was
yeah.
his wife,
Yeah,
and she lived in Wilmot Center.
that's right.
And so,
Louis Bernard was her brother. He was the year behind me in high school.
yeah,
Louis' daughter works over at the county home where my wife is, Rhonda.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know that Vic told me that was how he met Ella, because he was delivering groceries up here in Wilmot.
Oh, he was? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
Because we didn't go that far with the route when I worked with Morris. Morris Pennard was Marjorie Pennard's brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, did you, what year did you start Andover High?
1938, I graduated from grammar school at the North Road.
Right.
That fall I went to Andover. I graduated in 42.
Okay, so September of 1938, you started at Andover. Okay.
Now it's quite a jump from Andover High School to Cornell. How did you go to the university first and then Cornell?
I went to the university, yes.
Okay.
And I was a student at the university when I joined the Marines
Okay.
in December. Then the Marine Corps, they let me finish that year of school. And I didn't know what was going to happen. They wouldn't tell you, you know. Yeah. Then in July of 43, I got orders to report to the Fargo building in Boston, to the Marine office down there. So I did. There was a whole bunch of guys coming in. And they loaded us on a train, didn't tell us where we were going. And the next thing I know, we were in Grand Central Station. Looking all around.
My goodness, yes.
Let us back on the train, we wound up in Ithaca, New York, Cornell University. And there was a Marine detachment there. There were about 300 of us. They housed us in a couple of fraternity houses that they had commandeered from the fraternities, I guess. And that was where we stayed.
Now, do you remember any of the teachers that you had at Andover High School?
Oh, sure. George Corson.
Oh my goodness, yes.
He was headmaster later years. He was a shop teacher to start with.
Right.
Randolph Harlow.
Uh-huh.
He gave me a private course in solid geometry over in his house when he was disabled with asthma so bad that he couldn't work.
Oh my goodness.
Very nice guy. Then there were two Jewish men from New York, Samuel Deitch, and I can't remember his first name, Mr. Kaufman. They were the math and science teachers. Thelma Dearborn was the home economics teacher. Dorothy Whitney, what was her married name?
I've heard the name. Can't think of it.
Dorothy, he lived down on the Salisbury Road, just this side of the river. Had a farm down there.
It'll come to us when we least expect it.
He's not used to not being able to
Now,
remember.
what courses did you take? Did you take like a college prep program or
No, just general courses.
general? So you took shop,
Shop, science, math. I had these private courses from Mr. Harlow in solid geometry. And plane geometry and that sort of thing. And he's algebra, advanced algebra.
Oh, you got a very broad education
Yeah.
at Andover High School. Very comprehensive.
Well, they did a good job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Now, how many people were there in your class?
Okay.
We had 29 in my class.
Wow.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
now we're
we
still
were
on
a
the time.
fairly large class.
I guess so. Now, that was when you started,
Yeah,
and
we didn't have very much attrition.
you didn't, okay.
No, we lost, I don't know, 2 or 3. And we had a couple come in.
Mm-hmm.
So
Stayed
we
pretty
graduated
stable.
with about the same number we started.
Wow,
Which was how many?
29.
Wow.
Oh,
That was,
Yeah.
because my class was one of the larger ones, and it had 25. So
Yeah,
that's
Charlotte,
Clark Courier.
yeah,
I mean Courier, Clark, okay. Now, she lives in Andover, you know.
I know.
You saw her Old Home Day?
No, I didn't.
Yes, she was there.
Where?
On Old Home Day, up there
Wilmot?
at Wilmot Center, I'm at North Wilmot at the band concert. She and her daughter Luann were there.
Well, I wish I'd known her.
Well, I wish I had thought to mention it. Well, this is all new, but we will see to it that you get to see her. If you'd like to.
Yeah, well, I stopped to see her a couple of years ago and asked her if she could kind of, where she was close to and knew everybody, if she could kind of get everybody together and have a class reunion.
Uh-huh.
She said she would. Well, I understand they had class reunions, but I wasn't asked.
Oh my,
No,
that's
I want to
a
talk to
shame.
her.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, now when you graduated in 42,
Yes.
and from what we can find out, there was not any yearbook in 1942. If there
interesting.
was, we
I
have
don't
not.
remember that there was.
No. So therefore, with the people, and well, one of my classmates and a couple of others that I know have tried to find out, you know, going through old books and papers and stuff, who was there for the Alumni Association.
Yeah.
And with no yearbook, it was really hard to
I
find
can
this
imagine
out.
it must have been. You didn't have a roster then.
No, So that's how come you had fallen through the cracks with us, because we did not know that you were in that class because we didn't have any, you know, any documentation. So let's see, how many of your classmates do you think you can remember?
Classmates?
Yes.
Ooh.
that's hard.
I'll tell you what, would you be willing, at your convenience, at your leisure time, to see, you know, write down as many as you can remember, and let us know. And any that more like you that we have missed and not gotten in contact with, we will make every effort to find them. Okay?
Okay, yeah. A lot of them are dead.
Well, that's to be understood. That's understandable. But that way, you know, because we would really like to, you know, to get in touch with everybody that we can. Now, do you remember the 1938 hurricane and how it affected you folks?
Yes, I do.
Interesting.
1938, I had a bicycle, and I used to ride my bicycle over to the North Road School. That was my last year of school. And when that hurricane came, we knew nothing about it.
That's right.
It was, you know, one of those evenings when it was muggy out, and it was warm and so forth. And in our little house, we didn't have too good of ventilation. So my father opened the door. We had a screen door. We sat there, had our supper, and the door was open. And I can remember him remarking something about, well, it's kind of windy out. The wind was blowing from the east right over the roof of the house, because there's kind of a ridge behind us.
That was in September, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
And so we didn't pay too much attention to it. Next morning I got up, I got ready to go to school. I got on my bicycle, and I started riding off. I went down to the church, turned right, and started down towards Fran Langley's. I was going over Hobbs Hill Road, go that way. Well, I got down in the woods, and all of a sudden there was a couple of trees on the road. So I get off the bike and walk around through the woods with the bike and get back on, and I'm pedaling along. All of a sudden there's a mess of trees in the road.
My
So many that I couldn't get around them. So what am I going to do? So I said, well, I guess I'll back to see my dad. And so I went back and I said to my father, I said, you know, I can't get to school today. I said, the trees are all filling the road down there, and I couldn't get my bicycle through them. So I said, I came home. Well, he said it must have been a pretty bad wind last night. And so then they checked the telephone. The telephone was dead. And we said, yeah, I guess it must have been.
Yeah.
So that's how we knew we had a hurricane.
Yeah.
Barely knew it. But it sure did some damage. There were places in the woods where there were whole patches of trees that were just flat.
Now, I have heard that the Kimball place was pretty badly affected by it.
They lost a lot of shingles, a lot of roof, and so forth. Yeah. Dad worked up there afterwards. Charlie Abbott came down and got him and asked him to come up and help, and so forth.
Now, tell us about Mrs. Kimball and Charlie Abbott.
Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Kimball lived at Big Breezy, and I understand that Charlie Abbott was her chauffeur. Is that correct?
Yes. Charlie was, I guess he was kind of an orphan child or something. He came to him as a teenager. I would suspect that probably at that time Mr. Kimball was living. After Mr. Kimball died, Charlie kind of became her major domo, or a left-hand man, or right-hand man, chauffeur, roustabout, general helper, advisor, or, you know, that sort of thing. If there was anything being done, any work being done by other employees, he supervised it. And he was also her chauffeur.
Yeah. So
And
she was
had a
able
cabin identical to Mrs. Kimball's cabin right next to it up there, and his wife and his two daughters, they lived in that cabin.
Okay.
So wherever Mrs. Kimball went, Charlie drove her in a Cadillac.
Yeah.
First, when we first moved there, they had I expect it must have been around a 28 or 29 Cadillac. Then they bought a 34, I think. And then 37 or 38, she bought a big Buick, the biggest Buick they make.
Oh my.
Huge thing. And I remember Charlie was a very cautious individual. Every corner he came to, he'd blow his horn. So you'd hear this horn tooting all the way down by Fran Langley's, and you'd know Charlie was coming.
Right.
With Mrs. Kimball's car.
So she was, even after her husband died, she was able to continue living up there.
She lived in Brookline, Mass in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved down there. Charlie and his family moved down. His girls went to school there and so forth. And when school was out,